recorded by Cape Ann TV Access Corporation, also known as 1623 Studios, for future broadcasts. The meeting is being filmed by volunteers from 1623 Studios. This meeting is being taped by town note-taker Gail Hunter for accuracy in minutes. Anyone else who is recording the meeting is asked to notify the chair at this time. Better? Better? No. Yes and no. Hello. Good. Last, all members of the board and people in the audience are asked to turn off or silence their cell phones at this time. Start with a few announcements. We're going to take a moment and have a moment of silence for three individuals. Nina Adams was a long-term resident of town and many years elected as pound keeper. Geraldine Costello is a long-time resident of council aging worker and active in senior citizens activities. And Gordon Bell, who is a veteran and American Legion Post 113 past commander. So a moment of silence for these three folks. Okay, we have a very packed agenda tonight, so I'm going to be moving things along as efficiently as possible. We're going to start with our traditional item 0. If anybody has anything that's not on the agenda tonight that they want to make a very brief comment on, anybody out there has something that's not on the agenda?
Spring is here at last.
Yeah. Okay, item number 1 is we have a request from residents to have the Board of Selectmen request that we stop fluoridation of town water. So I'm going to give a little bit. Tonight we're going to be dealing with this from a process perspective. How do we want to approach this over the next coming weeks to come to a decision on this? Because it's not going to be possible for us in the space of this meeting to come to a decision on it. So we're going to establish the process by which we're going to move forward. So town meeting approved fluoridation of the water in 1982. There's clear state law on how to start fluoridation of the water. There's no clear state law on how you stop. So this requires, if we decide to stop, submitting a home rule petition. Now, home rule petitions for this we're outside of the regular legislative session already, so we would be submitting this for the January legislative session, which means we have a fair bit of time here in order to sort out the process that we're going to take. Okay, so the Board of Health met on this topic. Recently, they made some recommendations that the town meeting have input, should we choose to go that route, but they have not made any technical recommendations so far. We have a lot of materials from citizens and from the Board of Health, some of which we have gone through. I don't know the extent to which other board members have gone through. It's quite a bit of technical material on both sides. And so we want to sort out how we're going to sift through this and come to a decision. And what process, if we decide that we want to move forward with the notion of stopping fluoridation or considering it, what process do we want to go through? In other words, do we want to take it to town meeting and have town meeting weigh in? Technically speaking, the Board of Selectmen can submit the home rule petition without going to town meeting. But this is part of the debate, this discussion that we're going to have here tonight. So, with that, I'm going to ask for any suggestions or thoughts about process from other board members right now.
Mr. Chairman, excuse me. Yeah, I believe that, as you have mentioned, the Board of Selectmen does have the power to do this, but I would, since this was voted by an annual town meeting 36 years ago, I don't believe the Board of Selectmen should unilaterally decide that we are going to override the vote of that town meeting. So the process, I believe, should involve education, working with the Board of Health having some type of open forum meetings, and then it going to the town meeting possibly next spring annual town meeting.
other thoughts or comments?
My comment was just, I wanted to make sure we had a timeline, that it wasn't something that just sort of was floating, that we actually had a plan and
Yeah.
a timeline.
So, we could start this by taking one or two members of Board of Selectmen to work with the Board of Health to go through the materials, to develop a plan for public forums or gathering some public input. If we took those initial steps, what would be a good time frame that we should aim for? Should we aim for getting a recommendation on whether or not to go to a town meeting, say, in, what's that?
February 1st. Well,
No.
no, where is our warrant? What's the deadline for the warrant?
Oh, I was thinking about the deadline for the warrant next year, I don't know. I was thinking about having a recommendation back to the Board of Selectmen much earlier than that on whether or not we should
It goes to.
take this to town meeting, right?
I mean, I would think that the middle of the fall season, because you know just as well as I do, we're now in the middle, or getting close, we're in the early part of May. Once you start to get into June, July, and August, you'll have a very difficult time attracting people and bringing people into public forums and things like that. So you could do something possibly at the end of this month, the beginning of June, but then trying to have something during the middle of the summer becomes a little bit more difficult.
Well, we could certainly aim for something in June and then have reconvene it, report back to the Board of Selectmen on the status of it in July.
I think you'd probably want to have more than one forum or something like that, so people could present information, just in the amount of information that's been in my selectmen's book and been in my inbox in the last 2 weeks. It takes a lot of time to digest all that, and I probably read half of it and skimmed the other half, so I haven't even had a chance to complete everything on that.
But Eli, why wouldn't it be a position of the Board of Health before it rises to the Board of Selectmen to do something about it? And the alternative would be a citizen petition given by any constituents who want to make a change independent of that. So my point was, why wouldn't it go to the Board of Health for a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen? And/or an independent citizen petition if there was a desire to get it on the ballot prior or independently?
Well, I would certainly anticipate that the Board of Health should make a technical recommendation to the Board of Selectmen on yes or no on whether or not to submit it to a town meeting. I think they may have actually already said that it should go to town meeting, but I don't know if the context was it should go to town meeting if we, Ms. Bradley, Dr. Bradley.
Testing. Is this working? Okay. So I'm on the Board of Health, and at that meeting, we were just beginning to have a discussion when Ms. McGovern and her friends walked in, and she informed us that whatever we had to say legally was irrelevant, that it wasn't us to recommend or to vote or whatever. And I'm not sure how you revoke water fluoridation, but it was at that point, when she left, we said, she said it was a selectmen's decision only, and it should not go to a town vote or a town meeting either. And we were very concerned about that, and so we really didn't get into the whole vote on whether we were going to endorse water fluoridation, although I can tell you there's a pretty strong consensus there. We wanted to make sure that if the selectmen were considering doing away with water fluoridation, that the citizens of Manchester should be involved in that decision.
Okay. Well, from my perspective, I can't imagine moving on a decision with regard to this without having clear technical and considered input from the Board of Health on this.
I agree.
I guess I would like to proceed with meeting with the Board of Health and discussing the technical details and potentially putting together a schedule for public forums to gather some public input. And I think moving forward in a June timeframe for at least one of the forums, and then seeing where we land after, well, maybe we should meet with the board and come up with a schedule
I
and then
think,
come
yeah.
back here.
So I think getting it, having a meeting with the Board of Health, coming up with an action plan to be presented in early June at our meeting to say this is how we're going to move forward with this, with the input of the folks that, appear to give that to us. And we should have a pretty clear schedule out that describes working with the Board of Health, what the time frame is, what the forms will look like, what our path to making a decision will be, and just be crisp about it. But I don't think we can just sort of figure that out without talking to them first, because I do
Yep.
think they need to.
Okay. That sound reasonable to everybody? Does anybody on this board particularly want to be involved in that? Maybe not you.
Not me.
It's just gonna depend on when it is, as to what my daytime participation can be, if it's during the day.
All right, so
Depends on,
you might be interested.
it depends on.
Either of
my
you interested in
availability.
this chase? I will probably chase this with the Board of Health.
Okay.
So if one other person wants to join me, that's great. If Muffin can't do it, are either of you interested?
Yeah, I'll have to.
Okay.
It's just gonna depend on, Eli, when we're putting meetings together.
All right, so I will talk to Board of Health and arrange some time soon with one or more of us to discuss the process for making a plan for how we would discuss this, analyze it, and present it to people. What's that? Let's see. Well, if we do it at a public forum, at a public Board of Health meeting, what's the next Board of Health meeting? What's that? Okay. I can't meet with the entire Board of Health. I can meet with, because that would break open meeting law, I can meet with a member of the Board of Health. Yeah, you can do that. But I wouldn't, if soon, in order to complete this, we need to meet with the larger Board of Health to have a consensus, and that will be known to the public. That'll be posted. Well, we're already going to be over our 15 minutes. I'm going to let one of you make a presentation. I know, so this was a request made by, essentially by one person, I think, to the three, well, I'll allow one person to have a 2-minute statement.
Okay, well, my name
Hold on, you need to get a microphone. Thank you.
I have one. This is Johanna Keefe from 8 Victoria Road in Manchester, and I'm a registered nurse and master's prepared holistic nurse educator. I teach at Endicott College School of Nursing, and I really wasn't informed on the dangers of fluoride when I was raising my 2 kids here. And just recently, I've really dove deep into the issue, and I'm quite disturbed by what I'm reading. So I just wanted to make 2 major points. One is, do no harm. Let's protect the vulnerable, the elderly, the immune-suppressed, children, and those who can't afford reverse osmosis or bottled water in their homes on a regular basis. The other is this idea of informed consent and the ethics around putting an entire water supply in a situation where it's got this toxic powder from China that's their waste from another process, and they are not allowed to use it, and they don't know what to do with it, It's this bag with a skull and crossbones on it. Let's just use the precautionary principle, and each and every time someone wants to use fluoride, that they have that choice. And if they don't, or they don't know any better, that they're not given fluoride in their water. I just think of the elderly who, get Meals on Wheels and, maybe in a part of a community where meals are prepared for them with tap water. The other thing I want to say is that there's a lot of research now done on the microbiome and the importance of a healthy gut. And when you put fluoride in the water, you're destroying good bacteria in the gut, and that has huge ramifications for brain health, for one, of our kids. And over 50 studies from this institute of the International Academy of Oral Medicine and Toxicology, or IAOMT, 800 dentists, physicians, and research professionals in more than 14 countries. In any case, over 50 studies show decreased IQ. Anyone in the school district knows about the need for special education. It just keeps rising. And gut health happens in the fetus if the mother's drinking this water. So there are all kinds of studies about the health of newborn babies that don't get good gut flora from the mother. So that's all I have to say. I just honestly didn't know. I didn't think to really research this. Putting fluoride in the water happened many, many years ago when DDT was still considered safe, and asbestos lined our pipes and other awful things going on that we now know are not healthy for us. So I just say informed consent, informed choice. Let it be a choice. Clean water's a human right. And I'm a nurse too. So I don't feel an adversary to the Board of Health. I think that we need to stay curious, and we need to reevaluate always what the standards are that we grew up with. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Okay, Board of Health meeting, did you find the? May 31st at 8:30. AM, right? Thank you. Yeah. All right, I will be in touch with the Board of Health to see if we need to do any preliminary work before then. Who should I contact, you, or should it be the chair?
You can contact me.
Okay.
Or you can also contact
Ellen Lufkin?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I'll work that out well in advance of May 31st, and let the Board of Health know by email. All right, I'm going to move on to item number 2, which is a public hearing, request for public tree removals on Vine Street, Lincoln Street, and School Street.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion. We open the public hearing for discussion and possible decision on removal of trees on Vine Street, Lincoln Street, and School Street.
Get a second on that?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. All right. So we have 5 trees that are in consideration here. 4 of them are the subject of one request, I believe, and the ones on Lincoln and Vine Street, and the one on School Street is a separate request.
Can I make a suggestion that we do the 89 School Street one first? That seems to be the easiest to get through.
Yeah, I think so. That's reasonable. Tom Henderson, would you come and make some comments on that tree, please, on School Street? Yeah, please. I imagine you'll be talking some.
Yeah, this is a large linden tree, probably 75 years old, that's been in decline for the last 10 to 15 years. And we have pruned it once the direct butter on the corner had concerns about it over the years, and it has continued to decline. Right now, the whole crown of the tree is died back 3 or 4 feet, and that's not in a locality on the crown, that's generally the whole crown of the tree. And that's usually indication of something going on inside the tree, maybe cavities, some sort of pathogen, fungus, bacteria that's growing in there. And it's not getting any supply to the top. I don't know, I looked at it over the last few years, and this has seemed to progress. There's also some bad spots in the trunk, which is an indicator of decay internally in it. It is quite healthy from the top third on down, but that can often be a sign of stress, the tree putting out more energy, making more foliage down below to try and compensate from what it's lost. In my opinion, the reason I brought it is I feel right now it's a safety hazard. There's so much dead wood up at the top of the tree, and that's a corner where there's a lot of traffic. I speak loud anyway, I don't need these anyway. But I think that the time has come for us to consider removal of the tree because of its health and the prognosis that this tree is not going to get better. I hate to take down any living tree. I'm always a very pro pruner, but in this case, I think a decision to remove the tree would be warranted, and within a few years, we try to see how the tulip tree, which is up the street a little bit, maybe 10 feet away, responds to more light and will develop into a better tree. If not, we certainly could consider planting something on that corner if the residents would like it or whatever. That's my general opinion on the tree. Thank you.
Okay, questions and discussion from the board
Yeah,
on this one tree?
I took a look at it, and it's really not in very, very good shape. It has been dropping a lot of branches. This last winter was, with the storms that we had, branches of all different sizes were coming down. It certainly doesn't appear to be very healthy, as the tree warden says, and I think it would be good to get it down and get it out of the way.
Other members of the board? Any members of the public have any comments on this tree? This is the one at the corner of School Street and Lincoln Street.
My name's Jeff Bodmer Turner. I live at 89 School Street and have watched this tree for many years as well. And another big concern about this particular tree is that it's right near power lines, cable lines. There's a lot of wiring that goes around this tree. It's not going to be an easy job to take it down, but if it comes down on its own on those lines, it could cause a lot of havoc in terms of the area and maybe a substantial power outage.
And the one note is those are the 34 kilovolt lines that go down Lincoln Street. Those are the heavy lines.
We already had problems with the power.
Yeah, yeah.
Sandy Bodmer Turner at 89 School Street. I just have one additional comment to add to my husband's, which is that we very much support what the tree warden has to say. And as evidence of the tree's decay, large enough branches came down this winter that one of our neighbors actually picked up the branches and used them for fuel in their fireplace.
Okay. Oh, I should remind people of the process. We're going to take all the public input. We'll have some discussion on the public hearing. We will close the public hearing, and then we'll vote on our decisions afterwards. That's the standard process. That's why you're not hearing us vote about it right now.
Michael McNeff, 39 Old Planters Road. I am one of the manager owners of 41 Lincoln Street. I'm here with Kevin Petrini. Kevin's the trustee of the Viking Trust, which is owning 36 Vine Street, a new house that's being built. It's a A&R plans that we got approved, if I get this faced the right way, A&R plans that we got approved a couple of months ago from the town. and we're breaking off the lots. We've got our curb cuts that are recorded back from 11/27, and we defer it to the board or the tree warden, try and keep as many trees as we like. It certainly is a nice corner. We have a couple of trees that really are gonna have to come down. I'll talk about 36 Vine Street first. There's a maple there, and if you can see it on the plan, it was marked with a tree. It's this, hang on a second, it's this tree right here, it's on your plan. It's the third one to the right as you look at the house, and it's right in the middle of the driveway. If we could move the driveway somehow, I'd be happy to save the tree, but I don't think that's gonna work. Are we keeping the bushes in the front of that house, or are they coming down? They've already gone, okay.
They're not there.
The other two trees, the maples, and they're all nice-looking trees. It's just that they're back, they were planted by, I believe, Beth Greenslet, who told us, who we bought the property from, told us that her father had planted them, and I think they got inherited at the time that he bought them. He put them at the house. He bought them, I don't know what year that was. But we inherited them within the setback of our property with the town, and that's why we're here, trying to get permission to take it down. The one that is over by the water, and it's a kind of a high water table, and I think that's why those roots kind of creep along the top ground there. That is right in the middle of the water line. I suppose we could move the water line, although there's not a lot of room to it. The sewer is actually on the other side of the middle tree that is there. And for us to get down 4 feet, and where those crowns are of those trees, I think that it's gonna get pretty good damage on the tree. We're happy to plant a couple trees somewhere else on that property if it's more appealing to the neighbors, but that's why we're here, to get those 3 trees down. The one tree that is in the driveway at 41 Lincoln, and we're gonna keep most of the trees that are in front of Lincoln, and there's some nice ones there too. But there's one at the edge of the driveway, and I talked to the engineer, and while still being able to retain the curb cut, we might be able to slide that one over because the digging isn't as deep. We only have to go down about a foot over there, where adjacent to the trees on 36 Vine Street, we have to go down at least 4 feet. So, would you like to add anything, Kevin? Yep, that's pretty it, all it.
Okay. So a couple of observations. One is these are pretty good-sized trees. They provide a significant canopy in the neighborhood, and they're all healthy, as far as I know. So I'm sure we'll be discussing the pros and cons of this, but I want to make one other point. I traded some email with the chair of the planning board on this, and I asked them if they knew about the trees and to discuss the trees when they approved the curb cuts, and he said that they had not discussed the trees, and they did not do a site visit. And I have a letter here tonight from another member of the planning board who abstained in that decision, who also says that the trees were not discussed or contemplated, and there was no site visit. And I'm wondering if perhaps it would have been appropriate for the planning board to make a site visit to this, since this is a significant request and a significant amount of canopy is going to be removed. Other
Well,
comments?
I'll answer that. May I come?
Yeah,
Thank you.
Actually, I was going to invite other comments from
Yeah.
other members of the board.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was surprised to learn that it hadn't had a site visit for the curb cut.
First of all, the trees, from my perspective, in terms of looking at them yesterday, all are very healthy trees. I'm concerned about losing 4 nice trees on Doc Greenslit's lot. I also was wondering about the curb cut on Lincoln Street. And the curb cut on Lincoln Street is 21 feet wide. That 21 feet does take in just one of those trees on the edge of the 41 Lincoln Street lot. And if you move that curb cut either 3 feet or narrowed it 3 feet, you would probably miss that tree. I would be, you'd have to convince me pretty heavily that it's necessary to take all 4 of these trees down. And if I were to vote for taking all 4 trees down, I would want to receive something back from the developer, either a significant donation to the town to pay for 4 additional trees or 3 additional trees to be planted somewhere in town, or a couple of trees to be planted in other positions on this lot to keep that section of Lincoln Street very green. One thing the Regional School Building Committee did was they attempted to try and keep Lincoln Street and the areas around the school very green when the school was built, and eliminating 4 very healthy trees works in the exact opposite direction of the efforts that they have made to plant trees on Lincoln Street.
Susan and Arthur?
I think the first question I have is about the curb cuts. You know, is there a way to manage that? Maybe find a couple feet either way that might be able to help salvage a tree. I agree. I would rather not take them down. I also understand that if you're doing a lot of work there and going deep, you may damage them anyway, and it would be a moot point. But I feel it would be good for the planning board, I think, to go out and take a look at this and see what the curb cuts look like, and if there's a way to modify that to some degree, and then, you know, come back and see where we stand with it. I would say if there's any, if the trees do end up coming down and we vote that way, and we're looking for additional trees, I'd rather see them on that site so that it can restore whatever it can in terms of the canopy. So that would be my 2 cents.
Yeah, I agree. I have no new comment.
All right. Members of the public have comments or questions here.
Where's
Yep.
the-
We have a microphone.
Actually, I just want to see the plans, because I haven't seen them. Because I think there's a lot of trees that have X's on them, all along Lincoln Street.
Can you also identify yourself for the meeting?
Oh, Lynn Andrea Vago, 33 Lincoln Street. And I noticed there's a lot of X's on pretty much all the trees going down Lincoln Street and going up Vine. On what?
There's only 3 on Vine Street and 1 on Lincoln.
With X's on them?
Yes.
Well, they had, a lot of them had notes on them as the town meeting, when the town meeting was.
Correct, there should be 3 notes. 4 notes, actually. 4, yeah, 4 of them.
I think there were more than, no, there were. Okay. And you only had 1 X on Lincoln Street? So
the
what
ones
trees are you
that are
taking
posted
down on
have
Lincoln
X's on
Street
the
and
inside.
Vine Street? What are the 4, just to point out?
3 on Lincoln, on Vine Street right here. These 3 X's. We're saving the corner ones.
Okay, so,
And this is the curb cut on Lincoln.
so what trees are coming down on Lincoln Street then?
Just the one right here across from the Butterfield.
Okay, because, you know, whoever buys that property.
Hey, folks,
With,
I just need you to kind of,
Oh, I'm
as
sorry.
much as possible, scoot that aside and make this a conversation between
Oh,
you
sorry,
and the
but
board
not-
and not y'all out there.
that's all right, I just hadn't seen the plan. Not only is it just for the beautiful view, you know, the beautiful trees and everything, they're gonna need protection from the field across the street, because Mrs. Greenslet's house constantly got hit with balls. So they're gonna need some kind of trees, and probably a few more trees. So my suggestion would have been, if you do take any trees down, maybe you can talk to the school and put some more in front of the school, just for protection for everybody.
Okay, other comments?
Hi, I'm Jennifer Powers. I'm the property manager at 41 Vine Street, which would be right across from you. My husband is the dentist there, and then he owns the building with Dr. Nelson, the orthodontist. And one thing I'm just asking as like a point of order is, as an abutter, do we get notified of anything as far as like with the curb cuts and that sort of thing? Because there was no notice to us as an abutter about that. And as just somebody who's trying to run a business on that street, if there's any way that we can be made informed of when things are going to be happening, that would be really appreciated as your potential neighbor and fellow business owner. I would just echo that obviously the trees are very healthy. We have, I think you made reference to the fact that the water table's rather high, and we do have a brook. Our property is actually within the buffer zone, and so we have to be very careful about what we can do in our property area. the fact that there have been beavers there have made the property even that much wetter. Now, I understand the beavers are going to be taken care of, but the fact that 4 healthy, mature trees are going to be gone that are helping soak up some of that water, I would just echo that if the trees are permitted to be taken down, that hopefully within the property boundaries, they can at least replace a couple with trees that are, if not mature now, going to become mature shade trees and not just ornamental, like, you know, crabapple fruit trees or something to that nature. So that would be just my input.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Mike Kirk, and I'm here with my son Max. And my wife Shannon has written something, so I promised her that I would convey that to the board. We've lived 34 Vine Street since 2009. We're direct abutters to this project. Part of the reason we purchased this house on Vine was the beauty of the street, the towering trees, the shade it offered. And we oppose the removal of these trees. And any replacement trees would inevitably be very immature and take years, decades, you know, past our lifetime to reach the beauty that we're talking about. And, you know, as the developer's own words have stated, that we're talking about removing these trees to accommodate a driveway, to accommodate, you know, the cramming of a house in a subdivided property. Ultimately, we're talking about, you know, removing the beauty of the street, you know, for profit, for people who aren't, you know, going to live there. One final, and then just to the planning board, the point that was brought up, it's our understanding that no site visit, you know, was done in advance. We did not receive notification at any point. My son and I and my dad stopped by town hall, and that's the first time we saw this plan. So 10 feet outside my property will most likely be a 2-story building. You know, Vine Street has gone under a lot of changes. The removal of the greenhouse. We now have 3 large properties 10 feet off the road. We have 2 businesses, a school. The parking on that street, I think we know, can get very intense when Memorial School is having an event. There's definitely a safety concern. Cars go between the parked cars and the driveway and the sidewalk. And I would just, and finally, the work that has been done already, because of the business and the cars parked on the far side of the road, trucks are parked on the driveway. We had to call the police to have those trucks removed because kids were having to walk into the street and get around. So if this project inevitably goes through, we assume it's gonna, you know, we need to accommodate the safety of the children that walk down Vine to the school. Thank you.
All right, any other comments from folks? Yep, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Sean Masterson. I live at 21 Vine Street, so just down the road from the Kirks. And this is Peter.
Hi, Peter.
Enjoying the riveting discussion here. All I'd like to say is I actually just learned of this yesterday as my family went for a walk on that end of Vine Street, and we looked, and in horror we saw the signs up on the trees. And one of the reasons that we moved from Boston to Manchester 5 years ago was because of the leafy, beautiful nature of the town. The atmosphere is unbeatable when you walk around the village. And in that short 5 years, as Mike just mentioned, we've seen just on Vine Street a huge change. And in, I think, the last few years, I've noticed that in the areas that no longer have trees, whether that's because they're taken down for development or they're lost for other reasons, there's been significant degradation of the sidewalks and the grassy strips or medians, I'm not sure what you're calling them, between the curb of the road and the sidewalks. On Vine Street alone, they're turning into ditches. And that is due, I think, in no small part to the fact that there's no foliage to cover and shield those grassy medians. So when they get baked dry and people drive on them, the grass is ruined. And so I mean, I could not echo more loudly what Mike said and what others have said about preserving the nature of the village, of the community, and preserving these very beautiful mature trees. The only other comment I would have is if the trees were to be taken down and the developers were to agree to replace them, I'd like to know what obligations there are to see through the, as Mike said, immature trees growing up. Could they just put in a tree and check a box and say it's done, and that tree dies the very next year and we're done, or their obligations are ongoing that they're kept to?
Adele? Thank you.
Adela Irvin, 113 Ocean Street, Manchester. It is my opinion that the trees were there long before we were, that they have a right to stay there, and that unless the developer is building the Taj Mahal, he should go around them and allow them to continue, and if they need pruning, be responsible for that. But they are an integral part of that piece of Manchester, and I feel we should be on the side of the trees in this instance. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, oh, sorry, you're gonna.
I was going to ask if there are any other comments from folks out there.
Mr. Chairman, through you to the owner, Kevin, are you willing to take your plans back to the planning board and let the planning board look at these to see if we can change these curb cuts and save a couple of these trees rather than asking for removal of all 4 of them this evening?
Let me answer that, Kevin. I appreciate everybody commenting and enjoying the street, and I know they want people to do additions and want to protect their homes, and you have rights, and I think that the owners have rights. I just want to clarify something, that the cuts on 20 feet, I believe they're 12 and 14, not that it's a typo or anything.
This says 16, and this says 21.
No, it says 12, I believe. It says 14 on, it's a 14-foot wide here. Excuse me, 14-foot wide here, and it says 12 on Vine.
Well, all I can say is you may have different plans than I do, but that says 21-foot curb
Yep.
cut, correct?
Yeah, you're looking at a site plan.
And this says 16.
We're just looking at something different. I'm looking at the permitted plan signed by the board, and you have a copy of a site plan. This was the curb cut plan.
Okay, so can I ask the owner again, and I just want to
Yeah,
make sure
I just want
oh, sorry.
Thank you. You made a few comments. I just want to, it's all with courtesy, because I just want to keep the trees too. There was a comment that we did not notify people in regards to the curb cut. I can assure you that we went through every board around here, got full certification. People were fully noticed according to the law when it came to the curb cut. When we do an A&R, we went for the board, we got it approved. When we went to the curb cut, there was extensive discussion, and I'll get by somebody made the comment that there wasn't a site visit. It was extensive discussion that particular night about a site visit. All of the board members were well acquainted with that property. They felt that they needed a comment. There was a lady there that wanted to go out. She was queried as to where we could put it in another location, especially on Vine Street. The reason the cut is on Vine Street at that particular location, and it was well thought out. We didn't want to put it further down into the curb because there's a lot of in and out of property coming out of Vine Street. We wanted to keep it away from the driveway into the school. It was well thought out and well discussed with the planning board about that curb cut, and many had been out there a number of times, so I don't think they needed to see the curb cut. As far as discussion of the trees, we had talked about the bushes. I don't think the trees were discussed because we didn't really find out that the trees were an issue until we figured we're on our property, we can cut them down. We didn't know that you can't cut trees that are on your land. So I think that we could try, do whatever you like, to take out the 2 trees where the curb cuts are, maybe at least the one on Lincoln Street. The one on Vine, if we slide, the one on Lincoln, if we slide the driveway over a foot or two, then we can probably save that tree because we're not digging. The one on the driveway on Vine has to come down. It's right in the middle of the driveway. It's thought out as to why that driveway is there. So you can get a turn. There are other driveways across the street. The lady we're cognizant of the lady across the street with her business. My 5 kids got their braces there, so I helped over there. But if we can take down that tree, you want to keep the others, I'm afraid that we'll dig them. We'll do our best. If we can build wells around them, I'm happy to do it. But trying to, I feel, almost be fined to plant trees at another location and then monitor them for years to come, I think is a little heavy. I think we tried to do the best we could. We did follow all the rules. But I think we're willing, if we take that tree down, plant a tree somewhere else on the property that's satisfying to the board, I think that's a better remedy.
Mr. Chairman, I mean, with all due respect, you may have followed all the rules, but the one rule that you didn't realize is that the Board of Selectmen has to give permission for you to take down town trees. And that's where you are right now. And I, for one, am highly disturbed at being asked to take out 4 extremely healthy trees. The idea of asking you as a property manager and you as an owner, I believe are the positions, to plant some, say, 5-inch caliper trees and take care of them until we determine they're healthy, I don't think is unreasonable for you to get our permission to take down the trees. My opinion and my opinion only.
Mrs. Thorne's got something.
Sue Thorne, 94 Bridge Street. Just a clarification, it's hard for me to tell. All 4 of these trees in question are on town property, is that correct?
They're in the setback, the right-of-way.
Sorry?
They're in the setback, in the right-of-way for the town.
Okay.
So, I'm still lacking, notwithstanding your comments on the planning board and the process that you went through, I'm lacking clarity about whether or not the fact the trees were town trees and that they were going to be, it would require the town trees to be removed by the positioning of the curb cuts. I'm not clear that the planning board would have had different discussions with you had they known that that was the case, had they known that there was going to be pushback from this board on removing those trees. Tom?
I just was wondering, are there any other large shade trees that aren't under our jurisdiction on that lot that are coming down? Did everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
I thought I saw another large maple tree abutting the other house on Vine Street that had a mark on it, like it may be coming down also. I just was wondering if they plan to take any other trees down besides the one they're requesting before us, even though it's just a question of information for me with regard to water flow and situation there.
We were going to cut that tree and shave the roof. We weren't going to excavate the roof out there because it's in kind of a sensitive area.
So how many trees total are you taking down off that property?
On our property that are in your purview is I would suggest we could, in all respect to what you said, if we can deal with just the one on the driveway on Vine, we're happy to try and work it out with you.
Any other comments from the board?
I just feel, and I appreciate that. I think that's a fair statement to make at this point. And all I'm saying is that I'd like to loop back in just a conversation with the planning board, whether you need to go, I don't know if you need to go back or not, but I think we need to bring this proposal back to them, have a conversation as a board with the planning board to say this is what we think is going to happen and what they're willing to do, and just get their advisement on it, because I think it's fair that we do have one member of the board who was concerned about it. It's a situation that's obviously sensitive to a lot of people. I think you're being fair in coming forward and saying, let's just deal with the one tree and see what we can do with the rest of them. But let's just loop back with the planning board and close this out at our next meeting, if that's doable or not, I don't know.
I think it's challenging for us to continue this, because in order to continue this, we have to have them meet with the planning board, and then we have to get into a planning board meeting, and then we have to, in order to continue this hearing, we need to have a particular date that we are going to continue it to.
So can't we just continue it to our next meeting?
We can, but we won't know for sure if we've been able to meet with the planning board in
So you
that
could
time.
continue it again. If it doesn't come together for the 21st, then
Yeah.
you can continue it at that point. That is an option.
Okay. I'm sorry, what?
Are these, excuse me, a point of information, are these trees on town property?
They're in the right of way.
Who's
They're on our property. They're on our property.
Who's in charge of the right-of-way?
So as, you want to go into the particulars of the,
I mean, legally, and,
So town trees or any trees that are within the defined right-of-way of the road. So the right-of-way is assumed to be a minimum of 5 feet beyond the pavement.
okay, fine, so
Whether the
basic,
sidewalk or the.
so basically, they are town trees.
Correct, that's why we're here.
Yes, well, then we certainly,
The trees are on our, thank you. I apologize. It sounds like I'm argumentative. The trees are actually on our property. They're not in the right-of-way of that road.
If you have evidence for that, then we're wasting everybody's time.
yes.
Certified engineered plan signed by everybody.
What are we doing
It's
here?
right there.
Yeah.
Because we were told, and it's an innocent mistake, we're happy to be here. We didn't know anything about cutting trees on our property. It came to us that we were told by the town that we had to come here. If they're 10 feet on our property and the town planted the trees, which they did not, that we had to come here. So we were just trying to follow the rules so we could get our building permit.
So we just need a verification of the exact location of the tree vis-à-vis the edge of the road and the sidewalk.
Certified engineered plan on record with the Registry of Deeds. Here's the property line right here, along here. And there
So
are the trees.
what's that distance? I just need to know
Well,
that
it's 10
distance.
feet, it's probably about 5 feet, I'd say.
probably doesn't
If
fit the
it's
bill here.
5 feet, it's our tree. If it's 10 feet, it's not.
Right.
Okay,
So-
I just wanted to clarify. Even though it's on our property by 5 feet, right? Am I
Yes.
correct?
Correct.
Okay, so I was
Yes.
correct. It's on our property, but it's in your purview.
Okay,
Right.
all right. so
Correct.
I'm glad we have clarification.
Sir?
We could just take a tape measure and verify.
Well, I mean, whatever we can do, it just the one tree. I hate to go back because the appeal period for the curb cuts are long gone. And it was well thought out to put those curb cuts exactly where they are for the protection of the street. I think to go back to the planning board, open something, happy to get into discussion, call the people, that's fine. But I don't think we're gonna be able to move those curb cuts to a safer area.
Well, so you're hearing some pushback from us, and we can say no, right? I mean, we can, I think it would be more productive for us to work with the boards to come up with a resolution, rather than us to being left at loggerheads here, so to speak.
John Bennett, 600 Mid Park Extension. What's the dedicated width of that road in that area?
I don't know if it's 40 or 50, if I had a, because I don't see the other side of the property, it just says public variable width. So in the town, some are 40, some are 50. I don't have that on that.
I think we should continue this.
Just one other comment.
Unless, I'm going to make this the last comment from the public on this.
I promise
Yeah.
it'll be a good one.
What's that?
I said I promise it'll be a good one.
Identify yourself and your address.
Nate Berkowitz, 22 Friend Street. I haven't really seen the plan, so maybe this is clear on there, but are the trees that we're talking about, are they on the plan, or are they show it as being taken off the plan?
They're on the plan?
Okay.
Yes.
So just as a point of clarification for me.
I'm sorry, are they being shown as marked? As
Yes.
removal?
Yes.
They have an X on them.
Gotcha. So when it went through the planning board process, they knew that those trees were
There
going
was
to
an
be
X
cut
on
down.
there, yes, correct.
Got it. Okay.
But I don't
Thank you.
think anybody knew this law. Is there a way we can work it out tonight if we just take out one tree and plant the trees to your satisfaction where you'd like them?
So I'm more conservative about this because once they're gone, they're gone. I mean, I don't like the idea of removing large trees without full awareness and consensus of all the boards when it takes so friggin' long for them to grow. And I'm sorry if that's going to be an inconvenience to you, but I think it's worth it to the town to take our time to do these things right. Any other comments from the board right now?
Hearing no other comments, I'll move that we close the public hearing.
Well, can I suggest we continue it to the 21st?
Well, okay. Can we take a vote on one tree? How do we do that? Can we take the vote on the 89 School Street
Cannot take a
tree?
vote on that until we close the hearing.
I would be comfortable with you bifurcating, even though they were warned as one hearing. I think you could close out that portion of the hearing. I don't think there's any harm done in doing that.
I'll make a motion, we close the public hearing on the decision on the removal of the tree of 89 School Street, corner of Lincoln Street.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move that the Board of Selectmen give permission for the removal of the tree at 89 School Street, corner of Lincoln Street, 24-inch American linden.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, back to the 4 remaining trees. Get a motion to continue to the 21st?
I'll make a motion that we continue the public hearing on the possible removal of the 4 trees on 3 on 36 Vine Street and 1 on 41 Lincoln Street until the next Board of Selectmen's meeting, which will be Monday, May 21st.
May 21st at 6:30 PM?
Yes.
Yep. Get a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So we're continuing this until the 21st. We need to get in touch with the planning board and try to get this back in front of them, or at least get some more input from them by the 21st. I will talk to them tonight or tomorrow morning and try to move this forward as quickly as I can. And I'm sorry for the delay, but I think it's important that we do it right.
Thank you.
Okay. Item number 3, running a little bit late.
No.
So we gathered here tonight to say bye-bye to Tom.
Let people come in and go out and. See, there's folks that need to come in. Do you and I want to get the chair out while people
Oh,
are
yeah.
coming in? I pulled it out.
Yeah. It's too bad. Well, that's why.
We'll switch.
Switch now.
Come on in, folks.
See, now we have to stand behind you tonight.
Yeah. All right, everybody out there is in? Okay. So, folks, this is Tom Kehoe's last Board of Selectmen meeting sitting on this side of the board. And, you know, he's been on a lot of boards and a lot of things on the town. Again, who knows what the future will hold. We've had a lot of long nights up here with Tom, and one thing I will say is pretty much no matter what, all the the conversations and discussions with Tom have been informative, thoughtful, civil, engaging, and I'm going to miss his presence here. I think we all are. It's been a pleasure, Tom. It really, truly has. And we'll do the best we can without you.
I think the people from the previous public hearing are going to be glad to have someone else sitting in this seat.
Maybe we'll, for the next person, whoever it is, depending on how tall they are, we'll stack some telephone books up on the chair for them, so, just for old time's sake. Okay, so, does anybody have any, comments they want to make about?
Just as I've said before, and I've said this 1,000 times, that I've learned more from this man than I can even imagine. He's a gem to our community, has done so much, and has been such a wonderful participant in making Manchester what it is, and it has been such an honor and a pleasure to serve with you on this board. Thank you.
So I struggled to put words to paper. And then someone that you served with previously sent me something that she wanted read because she couldn't be here. And after I read it, I thought, I don't need to put my words together because somebody else did. So, dear Tom, the definition of a volunteer is someone who voluntarily offers himself for a service or undertaking for no pay. You, my friend, have unselfishly given your time, incredible effort, patience, diligence, wisdom, and humor to serve Troop 3, the Manchester Fire Department, numerous town boards, the #1 purchaser and supplier of animal crackers for children and adults, and my favorite, the Board of Selectmen. Tom, you are the most organized person I have ever met. You make lists for everything and everyone. I don't think I have ever seen you without your yellow legal pad in your possession. There it is. From catering, planning, scouting trips, family parties, BOS meetings, you come to all prepared, organized, and with questions and suggestions. In the time we served together, you never spoke a mean word, showed complete kindness, patience, and humor. You kept meetings on time and orderly, and board members and taxpayers civilized to each other, which is not an easy feat. Tom, never forget our trip to Hull with Mrs. T. and Where's Gary? Fixing Troop 3 scout ties, collars and pins on Memorial Day, driving the golf carts in the 4th of July parade, and graciously allowing me to stand on the top stair while you took the bottom stair for photo ops. It was an honor to serve in the BOS with you, Tom, and most importantly, I cherish our friendship. Now please start writing a list for up north. Congratulations on your well-deserved retirement, and thank you for all you did for the town of Manchester. Mary.
I'd just like to add, I grew up 3 doors down as a kid from Tom, and literally from birth, I've known Tom. And throughout my whole childhood, I'd always walk by his house to go to Memorial, and he'd always smile at me and wave. And I think since I moved back to town, I think he's alarmed at how tall I am and and how old we are now. But I have to say that throughout my entire life of knowing Tom, and it's been my entire life, he has always represented what it means to give back, just the amount of time that he's dedicated to the town and to the troop, and to so many other causes. So it actually is part of the reason why I'm sitting here, is that Tom taught me, literally. He's probably one of the first role models I ever had on this front outside of my own family, because we grew up on the same street. And so I thank you, Tom, and I'll miss you, but I'm still going to call you and ask you what's going on.
Yes, I always know when the phone rings with your number, Arthur, it's 15 minutes minimum.
Okay, we have dignitaries here.
We have Alan.
And Alan?
Alan, yep.
I appreciate that, Brad, because one of my worst fears about a gathering like this is having
Speaking
to follow
after,
you.
yeah.
Tom Keogh's record of service to this town is extraordinary. 12 years as a selectman, 4 years as chair, service prior to that on the planning board and the recreation committee, 40 years as a firefighter, a profession with which I've had very recent and very positive experience. And perhaps he is the nation's oldest Boy Scout. What's impressed me the most during Tom's tenure as a selectman and mine as moderator is the depth with which he prepares. Time and again, I've watched Tom tackle a new issue that he wasn't familiar with before, come to grips with the facts, develop real understanding of all the details and the nuances, and eventually come to sound conclusions based on facts and good judgment. Now, that detailed preparation, from my perspective, also has a downside, because as a lifelong teacher, Tom relishes nothing more than sharing the detailed wisdom he's developed with others, whether it be at a selectmen's meeting or public gatherings or, yes, at town meeting. And also as a lifelong teacher, Tom's default measure of time is the length of the school class. And that, as you can imagine, has caused some conflict between him and me, since my job is to move town meeting along and mostly limit people to 2 to 3 minutes. But we've seemed to have struck a compromise. I think Tom's default is now 5 minutes instead of 50, and I appreciate that. Most of all, what I want to tell you is that it's been a privilege for me to work with you in town government. No one cares more about the town and its residents than you do. So thank you for everything you've done.
Brad.
So if you don't mind, I'm just going to tell a couple of stories, and then I'll read our proclamations from the state. I want to tell these stories because I want you to see what this gentleman is, and for those of you who don't, you certainly will by the end of these stories. A few years ago, I had a little bump in the road with my health care, or with my health, and those 4th of July parades are very tough to walk in, as you know. And Tom reached out to me after I had my little incidences, and he said, you know, Brad, come up with the selectmen. You can ride in the golf carts. We'll take care of you. You showed a lot of caringness during that time, and my family and I truly appreciate it. As many of you know, I coach the JV girls basketball team here in Manchester, Essex, and there's somebody that we see in the stands time and time and time again, and that's Tom. Alan, when you just said he loves this community and he loves the people in it, he will go to those games and he knows those girls' names, each and every one of them. Wishes them good luck. Good times, bad times. Tom is there to support. I've seen him at varsity football games. I've seen him at varsity boys basketball games. This is a gentleman who loves his community and he loves the people that are in it. You have served this community so well over the years. When I start reading the whereases, you're going to be amazed at some of the boards that he's been part of. And what you have done in the scouting world, Tom, is just something that is beyond miraculous. And the lives of those young men that you've touched is something that they will never, ever forget. Senator Tarr and I get to come year after year to an Eagle Court of Honor, and it's because of your inspiration and your dedication to those scouts that they become Eagle Scouts. I wanted to bring a picture, but I don't know how to Photoshop, of a picture of you in the Webster's Dictionary of a public servant. Because when you think of a public servant, we think of Tom Kehoe and all the work that you have done. So on behalf of my colleagues in the Massachusetts House of Representatives, as well as the Governor of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, I have these 2 proclamations. From the Governor, it reads, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to Thomas P. Kehoe. On behalf of the citizens of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, I'm pleased to confer upon you this Governor's citation in recognition of your 26 years of service to Manchester by the Sea and your continuous efforts as a lifelong member of Boy Scout Troop 3 in Manchester. This 23rd day of April in the year 2018, it's signed by our Governor, Charles Baker, and our Lieutenant Governor, Karen Polito. So I'd like to
give that to you. And from the Massachusetts House of Representatives, we have a resolution congratulating Thomas P. Kehoe on the occasion of his retirement. And it reads, whereas Thomas P. Kehoe was elected to the Field Committee, on which he served 3 years, and whereas Thomas P. Kehoe was elected to the Recreation Committee, in which he served 6 years, and whereas Thomas P. Kehoe was elected to the Planning Board, on which he served for 5 years, and whereas Thomas P. Kehoe was elected to the Board of Selectmen, on which he served for 12 years, and whereas Thomas P. Kehoe will serve his final meeting as a member of the Manchester-by-the-Sea Board of Selectmen on May 7, 2018, at the Manchester-by-the-Sea Town Hall, and whereas with the support of his family, colleagues, and townspeople, Thomas P. Kehoe has upheld his commitment to public service by serving the citizens of Manchester-by-the-Sea and its surrounding areas through dedicating himself to the betterment of the community. Therefore, be it resolved that the members of the Massachusetts House of Representatives hereby join with the family and friends of Thomas P. Kehoe in paying him honor and tribute on the occasion of his retirement, and further extends their best wishes for all his future endeavors. And be it further resolved that a copy of these resolutions be forwarded by the Clerk of the House of Representatives to Thomas P. Kehoe, and it's signed by our Speaker of the House, Robert DeLeo, and Steve James, who is the Clerk of the House. It's offered by me, your state representatives, with the utmost thanks, not only for the service that you have given, but for the friendship that you and I have had over the past few years, something I truly appreciate. And he's heard me say this a few times at Court of Honors. Resolutions are voted on in the House of Representatives, and this was a unanimous vote. So the Republicans and Democrats came together for Thomas Kehoe in this resolution. So congratulations, Tom. To my colleague, Senator Tarr.
Well, thank you very much, Representative. I want to congratulate you on one of the smoothest mic changes I've ever seen. When we had a little bit of an audio-visual necessity there, you did a phenomenal job. And I don't know about you, but I am hoping, Muffin, that we can get that letter, because I have a lot of questions I want to ask Tom about some of the activities that were described in that letter, and particularly some of those trips, Tom, because I was quite surprised that you actually left Manchester by the Sea for anything. And so I want to know what some of those occasions were. But like Brad and your colleagues on the Board of Selectmen and our moderator, who I know will say that the 5-minute rule certainly does not apply to me. Correct, Alan? Because that would be a terrible thing for me anyway.
I left my gavel at home.
But I am honored to be able to be here just to say some words of thanks and congratulations for all of the things that you have done for this community, and as well what you represent for this community. You know, it seems like, Tom, you never run out of ways to help people in Manchester. And Brad read that list of things that goes on and on and on. I wouldn't be surprised if you gave Chief Masconomo a little bit of help at one point in time. And I certainly don't know what the next thing is going to be, but I think we all feel confident in knowing that there will be something else. But for tonight, what there is a legacy of a man who cares so much about his neighbors that he has been willing to find so many hours to provide service in many different ways. And Brad and I have both been able to witness your activities in the Scouts. And I've seen it in the case of not only courts of honor, but boards of review, and times when young boys needed a little bit of help and a little bit of guidance and a little bit of inspiration, and you have provided all of those to them. And Representative Hill and I have a saying. We say, if you want to see the world, join Troop 3, because it's amazing all of the activities that troop engages in, and that's largely due to your leadership and your commitment. And it's also true with regard to the fire department. I know Alan spoke a little bit about that. What could be a more important thing when you're in a time in your life when there may be a crisis, and your neighbor shows up, and he's wearing a uniform, and he's trained, and he's prepared, and he says, I'm here to help. Not someone you don't know, me. And what about all of the times on the Board of Selectmen which we all owe all of the members of the board a debt of gratitude, because we know it's not always filled with glamour. It certainly isn't filled with high compensation. But what it does, I can say that because town meeting's over, right? But what it does do is give you a sense to be able to walk around town, drive around town, and look at all the things that you've touched and been a part of and preserved and helped to grow and helped to nourish. And among all of those things, if we look at the various projects and things that you've been involved in, Tom, there have also been tough decisions. And while people may not realize it at the time, giving your sincerest effort and your candor and your commitment to those decisions is a gift that could probably never be fully recognized for all of us who have had the opportunity to work with you and to benefit from those things. And there's also friendship. Brad made reference to that. I think we both count ourselves very, very lucky to count you as a friend, to see you at a meeting, to get one of those bear hugs. Sometimes I practically needed resuscitation after one of them. Whether it be, just walking down the street, or whether it's been at the toy drive where you have been at every single one of them for as long as we've been holding them, whether it be in a site visit, no matter what it is. When you look around town, Tom Kehoe is one of those people that you can count on. And you can count on him not because you know he has a particular bias with regard to mindset or philosophy. You can just count on him because you know he's going to give you the best that he has to give, every chance he has to give it. And that is something that is so important to recognize and be thankful for, because, Tom, you have earned a tremendous amount of respect from all of us. Again, regardless of the time, the place, or the decision, Tom Kehoe gives Manchester and civic life his very best. And that's one of the reasons that Representative Hill and I are so proud to be able to come and give you these tokens of our appreciation from state government, because you're the type of person that ought to be recognized, that ought to be emulated, that ought to be seen as inspiration. And I have to tell you, when Eli mentioned that this was the last meeting that you would be serving as a member of the board, there was a little cognitive dissonance. Those are words I never thought that I would hear. But what I am ultimately grateful for is, in a chaotic world, and one where people sometimes value confrontation more than problem solving and collaboration, sometimes value inappropriate behavior more than professional behavior. You are a shining example of someone who can make all of our lives better by being a statesman, by being a caring person, by acting professionally, and by always being ready in the civic life of this town to do something that makes us all better off for it. So I am honored to join again with the board and with the administrator, with the moderator, and of course my friend and colleague Representative Hill, to say thank you for all of that time, for all that you have done, but most of all, Tom, for who you are, because you are a glowing example for all of us. So I have a state Senate citation. As you probably know, if you put this in the rear window of your car, it will get you out of one traffic ticket. If you happen to be speeding on Route 128, which I know Tom Kehoe never speeds, except maybe if you're late to an Eagle Court of Honor. But at any rate, this is from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts in the State Senate. It's an official citation. It reads, "Be it known that the Massachusetts Senate hereby extends its congratulations to Thomas Kehoe in recognition of your numerous years of distinguished service to the town of Manchester by the Sea." Tom, I didn't even try to list them all. I only have one piece of paper. "And be it further known that the Massachusetts Senate extends its best wishes for continued success, that this citation be duly signed by the President of the Senate and attested to, and a copy thereof transmitted by the Clerk of the Senate." And this is signed by our President, Harriet L. Chandler, attested to by our Clerk, William F. Welch, and I am so proud to offer it on May 7th, 2018, to a man who is a statesman, a a true citizen of this town, and most of all, a great friend. Thanks, Tom.
Yeah. We do have a group
Marjorie,
picture
we
with
have a
Tom.
little something for you to say. Thank you for lending him to
I usually always stand behind everybody, and then Arthur came on the board.
Oh, she needs you to move.
Okay.
Can we get Brad and Bruce in here too?
Yeah.
Come on.
Scooch this way if I can this way. Okay, is that-
Can we fit
Yeah.
everybody?
I think we can fit
where's-
everybody.
He's gonna go that way.
Okay. We'll go this way.
Which way we go?
Go this way. Over here.
It's like an obstacle course to get.
It's all right.
Can we get one with Alan?
Yeah.
I won't stand in front of you, Alan.
They wouldn't know I was there. You slide them in your pocket, Tom. I'll make you feel tomorrow.
Thank you.
All my junk.
Hold up your citation.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Everybody knows who I am.
Change your mind.
It was a difficult decision to make 4 months ago, but it's not being changed.
All right, good. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Yes.
You might have an idea it has something to do with the same thing you said to me. I just want to say a couple words if I
Yep.
could, Eli. Yeah.
You got 2 minutes, according to Alan. Alan, it's 2 minutes, right? He wants to speak, it's 2 minutes. Okay.
Uh-oh, the leash is off?
Yeah, the leash is off.
Alan,
This is my meeting. I'm limiting him.
There is a reference to that later. I had to take some time to think about what I would say tonight. It's certainly a bittersweet evening for me. I want to thank each of you for being here tonight and recognizing my service to the town. Muffin, you may need to read this.
Oh, great.
I am truly honored by your presence and your kind words. Serving on the board was one of my goals for many years. This is going to test some people's history. I first talked about the Board of Selectmen with Benny Stasiak, who was a friend of my family who served 14 one-year terms. I can't imagine having to run for re-election every year. I would read Tuesday Night with the Selectmen in the Cricket every week and started to attend the annual town meeting in 1969. Another friend of my family was Sue Noble, who was the first woman elected to the Board of Selectmen and later became chair of the board. Talking to each of those folks ignited the fire to get involved, first through appointed positions and then by election to the planning board and the Board of Selectmen. In my 12 years on the board, I've had the opportunity to work with many dedicated individuals who have sat in these chairs and worked to make decisions to move our hometown forward. The present team has made the difficult decisions. At times, we have differences in our opinions and express them well at meetings. But when we leave the meeting, we're still a group of people with similar goals for the town of Manchester and who talk to each other and leave the room as friends. Different than Washington, D.C. Each of you have been true public servants for the town and personal friends of mine. Thank you for your friendship from the bottom of my heart. Excuse me. I thought this was going to get easier. I work with two town administrators, Wayne Melville and Greg Fetterspiel. Each of them has moved the town forward. Our town has an involved group of residents who have a lot of questions and a lot of opinions. So the town administrator's position is one only a small number of people would want, never mind prosper in. We have been fortunate to have capable people sitting in the corner office at 10 Central Street. Manchester has true partners in the State House. The leadership team of Governor Baker and Lieutenant Governor Polito have been supportive of us with the Community Compact and in offering us grant opportunities. This really makes sense because if you look back in history, Governor Baker and Lieutenant Governor Polito first started their elected careers as members of the Board of Selectmen in Swampscott and in Shrewsbury. On the local level, we have two of the hardest working legislators working with us, Senator Bruce Tarr and Representative Brad Hill. They have worked tirelessly representing us in Boston and have worked to get us grants to allow us to move our town forward, including the Mass Works grants, which allowed us to do the first harbor dredging in 30 years, a grant for the town's Veteran Memorial, and a grant for the Central Street Dam. Thank you for being such great legislative leaders and being the friends of the town and friends, personal friends of mine. Next, I cannot forget one person who was neither elected or appointed. Oh, wait, she is elected. She's the pound keeper. She is also the conscience of our town. Adele Irving is the one person who attends most of our meetings and in many times delivers fantastic words of wisdom from 113 Ocean Street. Thank you for keeping us on our toes, Adele.
Thank you for being
To the many appointed and elected officials who are here tonight, thank you for your attendance and sharing yourself with the town and the people you represent. Mr. Moderator, Alan Wilson, it's great to see you here tonight. Practically the only disagreement we've had over the years is how fast my watch moves and your watch moves when measuring 2 or 3 minutes on the town meeting floor. For your information, Alan, tonight I am going over 2 minutes.
Go for it.
To my dear friend Sue Thorne, people can learn a lot by watching your dedication to any task you take on. You have served in many capacities, and I learned much from watching you as the chair of the Board of Selectmen. Thank you for your friendship, Mrs. T. We will have a cup of coffee at the end of this week and discuss tonight's meeting, yes. Thanks to the department heads and many town employees I've had a chance to interact with over the years. Each of them has been more than willing to spend time with me and answer questions on topics I was fully not up to speed on. For example, as Bruce mentioned and Alan mentioned about talking at town meeting on particular topics that you needed to prepare for, probably never in my life have I written the word marijuana on my computer more than I did in the last 3 months. To Marjorie and my family who are here tonight, thank you for your support. At no time was your support more evident while I was in a strong re-election battle 6 years ago. We formed CREEK, Committee to Re-elect Keogh. We came out on top, and you were the reason for my success. Thank you so much. Marjorie, there will be no more weekends with the Board of Selectmen's notebook or the yellow highlighters. I want to thank you for being so understanding when I needed to go to a site to see a tree that was going to be taken down, to look at lines painted in the road by National Grid for some installation work, or having people walk up to me, or in that case, us, in a restaurant, at Crosby's, at Dunkin's, or just out in the town and start discussing town business. I know that the people will not stop asking me for a while, but now I won't have the correct answers. So I will readily give out the numbers and the emails of the members of the other members of the board for you to call. Again, my appreciation to all of you. It has been a great opportunity to serve the town I love, and I've enjoyed it. Thank you.
And we're only halfway done.
I know, we're only halfway done.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Appreciate it. Kim and I froze our little patooties off over in Winthrop a couple of weeks back.
What was in Winthrop?
I think I was cold.
Yeah, it's cold.
I got a cold for like 3 weeks.
Oh.
That was a smart street side.
Oh, yeah. Well, any day in April was worth getting a cold with, yeah.
Yes, good to see you. We'll be in touch. Good?
Take care. Yes.
And we just see each other. Yes.
All right, what do we have left? A lot.
It is
I think we have a lot to do.
8:07.
We have a lot still to
8:07.
do. Thanks.
You can't put a time limit on those.
Verizon, thank you very much for your patience. At least it was reasonably good entertainment, I hope. Mr. Kehoe, could I please get a motion to continue the public hearing on pole settings on Highland Avenue?
So moved.
Could I get a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. And Mr. Steinert is recusing himself because he is involved. Okay. Now, as I understand it, neighbors and Verizon and the DPW director sat down, put stakes in the ground in places that everybody's happy with, and at this point, I believe that we are good to go. Is this an accurate statement of affairs? Do you have anything that you need to say to us right now, sir?
I agree. We did meet.
Oh,
sorry.
Somebody stole our microphone.
Here we go. Right, one here.
The other one wasn't working.
Sorry.
Oh, right, the other one's not working.
We met with the abutters on site, and
No, it won't fit in there.
think it'll
You gotta
be in
hold
Yeah,
it.
we'd like to.
We wish it would, but it never did fit.
and we had a pretty good discussion among the different abutters and their concerns. And we agreed on a new location for one pole that was problematic. That's pole number 10 over 6.5. We moved it a little further down Highland Avenue to clear Ox Pasture Road and the snow accumulation area that in traffic turnaround that the abutters were concerned about. So I think you're correct. I think we are all set.
Okay. Anybody here have any comments, questions? Sure, go ahead. Microphone. And state your name again, because who knows?
I just want to say that Evan, Stacy.
Reintroduce yourself to the meeting because this is a new meeting.
Have the mic. Okay. Chuck Houghton, Ox Pasture Road. They did a great job. We're very happy with the outcome. So thank you very much.
Okay. Comments, questions from the board?
I'll move we close the public hearing.
You got a second? All right. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
So I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that we allow the moving and reinstallation of poles on Highland Avenue per the plan that is presented for us this evening on Highland Avenue and Ox Pasture Road. I don't see a plan number, so that's... But it would be new pole P10 over 6 and new pole 10 over 6.5.
Fair enough.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you very much.
Arthur,
Patience.
back to work.
Like musical chairs.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom.
Yeah.
John, Chuck, we'll see you. Have a good one.
Okay. Consent agenda is long. I'm going to take out the two items that Tom already had flagged. Is there anybody else got anything they want to have held out of the consent agenda? All right, I'll read these items off. Board of Selectmen minutes from March 27th and April 17th. An amended approval for fish trap license for David Germain, temporary water plant O&M contract extension. Eagle Scout proclamation for Benjamin Quaid. Elder Abuse Awareness Day. Board of Selectmen newsletter and other media support. Memorial bench approvals. Revised field permit request form from the Parks and Rec Committee. Surplus property from the Fire Department and Library Trustees. Revised plumbing permit fees. ZBA membership for extending Mike Sullivan as an alternate for a 1-month period, I believe, and the final fire union contract.
Were we going to pull the North Shore Showcase special events?
I did not read that one off.
Okay.
That
All right,
one and
thank
the
you.
other one are
Okay, thank you.
the liquor license are held. Oh, actually, what I did have one question, Greg. The revised plumbing permit fees, why the request to go back?
So what was happening was on low-cost projects, the plumbing fee was not making those minimum numbers, which was an unintended consequence.
Ah.
So that's why.
Okay. All right. Any discussion on these items? Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda as I read it?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Tom, you had comments on the special one-day liquor license for Manchester Masonic Building Association.
The one thing that we didn't get from them, which we usually get from people who ask for the one-day liquor license, is a list of tip-certified servers. So they should have to be able to provide us with the 2 or 3 people who are going to be serving alcohol at that event. I would suggest that we would approve the license and ask them to get the tip-certified servers to us no later than the end of the workday on Wednesday, so we could come in and sign, some people could come in and sign it on Thursday. That's just a recommendation.
I'm fine with that. Also, on the one-day permit from the state, there's a sentence in here at the end that says, special licensees must purchase alcoholic beverages from a licensed supplier. Special licensees cannot purchase alcoholic beverages from a package store and cannot accept donations of alcoholic beverages from anyone. We have not in the past, I think, necessarily been clear about this, but I think we do need to be clear about this on these applications, so I think we need to remind the applicant about these rules. So perhaps we can attach that to, as our comments to the application. Any other comments or thoughts?
Sounds good.
Questions or thoughts from anybody out there? No. Okay, can I get a motion to approve the special one-day liquor license for Manchester Masonic Building Association with the proviso that they supply us with a list of tip-certified servers, and that we attach to it the one-day permit language from the Massachusetts guidance, Massachusetts state guidance.
Yeah, so moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Last, special events Coast of the Cure North Shore Showcase. Okay. Seashells and seashore.
So, this, I'm talking to Selectman Driscoll, I guess there is a problem with this, the field already being rented that day, and
I don't think the young lady knew where she was supposed to go to request the use of the high school field, even though she's a high school senior. So I think it went to Cheryl, because I called Cheryl today about it, because I was a little confused. So Cheryl said that Cheryl included it, Parks and Rec included it, because just to maybe as a way to make the board aware that there might be some kind of event being held on the high school field that included noise. And the application also said 3 to 10. The school has a policy that it would be lights out and music off at 9 too. So I think once Cheryl realized that the application probably didn't need to go to Parks and Rec,
Right.
it's just more to let us know that there may be something on the field that night. That,
So we don't need to approve this?
well,
Is it something that traditionally they need to go through the school to do?
well, yeah, to
Okay.
request use of the field.
And-
And that's what the young lady was doing, but she did it on a Parks and Rec
Oh,
permit application.
So we should punt this and have them go back to the school.
It's all taken care of.
Okay.
It's already in
okay,
the
yeah, I mean, I'm concerned about two things. One, the shutdown time, and if the school is gonna tell them 9, that's great.
Right.
And also, for the people in the neighborhood, the speakers should not be blasting out at Lincoln Street. They should be going back towards the school and towards the tree line between the school and the Essex County Club that'll absorb some of that sound.
The school has experience with the noise
Mm.
concerns and how they remedy them. It's a student score project. So,
Okay.
So is it possible that that concern about the speakers and the neighborhood
I'm sure would be addressed by the school
Yeah.
prior to the event.
go from us to the school, which is important, in my opinion?
Yeah.
And this is also a Sunday night. So it's, according to this, so would they be breaking down between 10 and 11? So they'd be breaking down between 9 and 10, so that would
Probably.
take some time, yeah.
The school.
If that long,
the
that's my
school's po-
understanding.
The school's policy in the use of the field is lights out, everything done by 9 o'clock.
Yeah, because that's what it is for football.
I'm sure
right?
the times will be adjusted
Okay.
on the young lady's project.
Okay.
To fit those parameters, so I'm not really sure it belongs here.
Sounds good to me. All right, so that's it for the consent agenda. Correspondence, we have a letter from Xfinity regarding to changes to the design of their monthly billing statements, letter from the Department of Environmental Protection regarding, yeah, well, draft waterwise license for Reed Park Public Dock. This is the transient dock site.
Yes.
Yeah. And a letter from the town of Hamilton regarding zoning board of appeals public hearing. Anybody got any comments or questions about those? Okay. We are on to the town administrator's report.
So I can go through these fairly quickly. So the Route 127 east of town is slated to get a emergency overlay. It should be happening early June. We don't have an exact date yet. We hope that they will give us plenty of notice in terms of letting people know. But this will be basically from Hickory Hill up past the town line into Gloucester, going towards Stage Fort.
Emergency overlay.
Yes.
Um,
So they do a short grind and lay back in place.
Okay. And sidewalks, yes or no?
No. So this is just making it a
much
little
bigger
smoother.
project, yeah, this is just
Yeah.
smoothing it out.
Yep. So, understanding is on the western end of town, that design work is underway for reconstruction of back towards Beverly. I don't have a lot of details on that at this point.
I think so, because I'm starting to notice markings on the
Markings, yes.
street and.
They've been doing
along
some
there.
sand corings and
Yeah.
getting some information together for that. But
When
we
they
don't-
do a emergency overlay, does that trigger the 5-year prohibition against cuts?
I'll have to double check with them. I don't believe so, but I will.
Yeah.
I'll double check. In terms of the March storms, the first storm did qualify in terms of the thresholds, dollar thresholds. So the governor has sent in a request for a federal disaster declaration. We hope to be hearing positively on that within the next few weeks. If so, we would be eligible for 75% of our cost to be reimbursed. So that would be good news and helpful. Certainly the cost of the rotunda would be included, work at Boardman Avenue and on Ocean Street, both by Black and White Beach. So we will wait to hear details on that, but that's looking positive as we go forward. The repair work at Tux Point is wrapping up. Both the Chowder House and the rotunda are practically done. So that work will be completed in time for Memorial Weekend, which is a good thing.
I guess so.
And so we'll proceed with that. There is some additional damage to the roof that may wait until the fall, depending on the timing. We may try to sneak it in the next couple of weeks, or it may wait until the fall. But that's also good news.
Back to the disaster
Yep.
funding, I thought I heard that it also included nonprofits.
It does.
So are we aware of what nonprofits in town have submitted to you?
We have a list,
And will
yes.
we- If we do get approved, will we?
We will
get
reach out to
notified?
them, yes.
Just to notify them?
Yes. Yep, we certainly will. Yep. Item number 4, in discussions with the school district about a shared facility position. So this would be splitting the position between the district and the town to bring in some expertise on the town side, which we have not had, for our buildings, for management of that. It would be partly for that, for us would be the facilities as well as project management. Obviously, the bigger projects would still require hiring the engineer or clerk of the works from the engineering firm typically. For example, the bridge and culvert project here would qualify as a large project that would necessitate that. But certainly the smaller projects, for example, our valve and hydrant work this summer, that's something that this person would do in-house. So we're moving forward with that and hope to have someone on board come middle of the summer in that position. So I think it's a good step forward in terms of sharing and strong communication lines opening up and looking at new ways of providing some of the services that are needed. So we are moving forward on that. Marijuana, Tom's comment about we have been running that a lot. We've been approached by one potential retail establishment. Don't have a lot of details. They came in to ask a number of questions. They know that they would be restricted to the limited commercial district. Options are limited in the limited commercial district. They are also looking at Gloucester and Salem as options as well. So I don't have a lot of more detail to share than that, but we have had one inquiry.
A lot of communities around us have had multiple.
Yes.
Between Gloucester, there's an article in the Salem today about one area of Salem has had 5 or 6 requests right along Highland Avenue leading into Lynn, so.
Yep. So we'll keep you posted if things develop or if we get other inquiries. The next joint session with the district and Essex and the Finance Committee, Selectmen on both communities, slated for May 16th at the high school at 7. That'll be a focus on capital projects with a particular emphasis, obviously, on the Memorial School project. So we will be hearing an update on the school project as well as a look at some plans for different ways of financing that effort. And in particular, talk about sort of the bigger picture beyond Memorial. And that bigger picture includes the need to do some upgrades to the Essex Elementary, but at this point it looks like relatively small upgrades could buy quite a number of years. And an ideal scenario would be if we are able to provide sufficient upgrades that allow us to wait until the high school bonds are paid off before we incur a new bond for whatever Essex needs in the longer term. That's on the positive side. On the other hand, we need to be looking at the needs of the high school. I know that we still consider that a new building, but it's in its teens and showing some wear and tear, and a plan going forward on how to make sure that that building is being maintained as we go forward, rather than coming into surprises because of deferred maintenance. It'd be good to avoid that. So we could see a scenario where this coming vote would be for monies for the memorial project, in addition to some upgrades to Essex. And then in the early 30s, a vote for a major renovation or rebuild of Essex, plus significant upgrades to the high school. And then in addition, there is an opportunity, we've had some discussions in the past, and it has materialized, where we have an opportunity to consider a small addition to the elementary school, which would be a town project only. It would not be a district project, but it would be a community center that would be home for the Council on Aging, basically serve as a senior center, and would also serve to house the after-school program and summer program for Park and Rec. I think it's a great opportunity. I think it would really add to the value of the building, and some nice synergies, not only in programming and cross-generational programming and opportunities, but open the building for additional uses. And I think that would be a very positive thing for the community. I think there's an opportunity that we could raise a lot of these funds privately, as well as a grant program that's available. So would love to see us pursue that if you feel that that is something that you would support.
Absolutely.
Yeah, without a doubt.
I will say that we should get somebody from this board to go as quickly as possible and get in with the school committee to talk about this with them, because this came up sufficiently quickly that a bunch of people on school committee were not really aware of it. And so they were a little bit blindsided about the actual opportunity coming to potential fruition. And time is short. We have a deadline of, what, June
12th is a deadline.
For when they're going to submit the detailed design documents for approval to MSBA, and this needs to be in it since this will be attached to the building.
So obviously,
So-
there are advantages to building it all at once.
Yeah.
So it really ought to be part of the project in that sense. Obviously, it's got a separate funding source, but it's an ideal time to build it while they're doing the school itself.
I'm happy to go talk with people. That
Yep,
would be helpful.
That's fine.
Building committee meets tomorrow night,
Tomorrow night?
and school committee meets,
May 15th.
right, it was changing the date.
So the meeting that you were referring to when you began this outline of school funding, is that exclusive to just school budget items, or you said there was other?
So the capital meeting will include
All-
town
all-
capital
yeah.
needs as
It
well.
will be a broader,
Yes,
heavy concentration. And when is the date of this meeting?
that's the 16th,
But they're
Is this
online.
Wednesday,
Okay. When is the Essex fire vote?
Tonight.
tonight.
Trying to find something and I can't.
Well, town meeting tonight and then ballot for,
On the 16th, 14th?
The
14th.
yes, the day before the day before our election is their election.
So we'll have the results from that for that meeting.
yeah.
Yes, we will, yes. Yes, which will have a bearing.
Is there any sensing of where that vote's going?
No, I think it's going to be, people are anticipating a pretty lively debate.
No.
Yep.
But that was the sense that I was getting from
Mm.
when we met last.
They did a good job on their town hall.
They did,
It's lovely.
they did. An item that came in a little bit late before the agenda, after the agenda was finalized, and that is the Cub Scout campout. Because of the lack of sand at the beach these days, they have requested to move to Tux Point, and they are hoping to do that on the 19th.
The only question I have is, will the toilet facilities be open at that time?
I will make sure that they are.
They need to be open and clean and made available to them.
What's the date on
May 19th,
Yeah, it's a week before Memorial Day, so.
yeah, so it's,
You need a vote on that?
that?
you said
For the
that.
Cub Scouts.
So, yes, that would be
Yeah.
appropriate.
I'll make a motion, we approve the use of Tux Point for Cub Scout Pack 30 overnight camping trip on May 19th and 20th.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
And again, for scheduling purposes, this doesn't involve Tom, but we're looking at doing a goal-setting session, and we were looking at May 30th. I have a conflict that evening. I have a conflict on the 30th. I was wondering if the 29th would work instead.
What day of the week is that?
It's a Tuesday.
Yeah. Can you do that, Muffin?
Yeah, as long as it's in the evening. Yep.
Yeah, this is, right.
Yeah.
All right, so you want to try for the 29th?
Yeah.
What time will we start? 6:30 or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. That's all I had.
That's all you had? Hang on 1 second. All right. Okay. I had a couple of other comments to make tonight. Tomorrow night, there's the transportation forum, there's transportation forum. Wait, actually, there's one other thing I'll ask you to
Oh,
follow
yeah,
up
we're
on
gonna talk about that.
as soon as I finish this announcement.
Yep.
The transportation forum at 9 a.m. and then another one at 7 p.m. They're going to be discussing transportation needs in town. And also, it'll be an opportunity to have questions answered about the roundabout trial, which we'll come back to you in for just a second. There's also Affordable Housing Trust meeting at 7 p.m. which Muffin drew our attention to. And I'm not around in the morning. I'm going to try to get to one of those meetings at 7 PM. I'm not sure which one yet. And then the other thing is Memorial Day, we had a request from the elementary school for a Board of Selectmen member to be present. We also typically have somebody over at the high school. So far, 4 of us are down for the count on that. Ordinarily, I'm available, but I'm not. I'm out of town. And Tom, the only person who is, wait, oh, man.
We'll just have to wait and see.
We're already drafting him back.
We'll just have to wait
you
and see.
need
How about,
me-
you want to be an honorary
If you
selectman?
need me to go to the memorial school, I would be glad to do it. I love doing that. And just let me know if no one else can make it, I will.
What was that over/under on volunteering?
That's,
I was saying earlier, Vladimir Putin had 6 terms, so you still have 2 more to go.
6 4-year terms, that's it.
Okay, so, yeah, okay.
So the roundabout.
Roundabout, yes, please.
So the trial will begin on Monday, the 14th. The layout of the configuration will occur on Monday morning the 14th, after sort of the morning rush, if you will. So by mid-morning, they will be out there to install. So the installation will consist of some rubber strips, basically, to form the circle. The circle will be striped with tape, basically yellow tape put across. And I'm not sure, get it to the. And so at each of the entrances, you have these inserts to direct people, to curve them around. So those will be also rubber, slight raised rubber mats with yellow tape put down as well. So those 3, and there's a 4th one that you don't see on Bennett Street here, because Bennett Street is not one way, it'll be 2-way. So there'll also be one here as well. There'll be 3 warning signs, the message board signs to alert people that there's a new traffic pattern, a roundabout traffic pattern. So heads up to that. And so obviously the flow is in a circular pattern. There's one rule of the road: whoever's in the circle has the right of way. Everyone else is to stop if necessary, but most times you can kind of roll through at a very slow speed. That's the intent of a roundabout, is to try to keep the traffic moving in a very orderly fashion. So this will be a trial run. It'll be from the 14th through June 8th. The committee is hoping to get some cameras that will actually video some of the movements through the intersection.
I think that's very important. There's got to be some way of collecting the data.
And then the intent would be to, after the trial period, is to conduct a mini survey.
Mhm.
Not only to the immediate area and the residents, but the community-wide
Population.
as well.
And do we know when the crosswalks will be painted? Will they be painted prior to that Monday?
So those crosswalks will be taped in
Yeah.
as well. So those will be a tape feature, because that'll all come up after June.
Right, but there's crosswalks there anyway. I mean, they're supposed to be crosswalks.
Correct. So for now, it'll be the taped
Okay.
crosswalks, and then when they come up,
We'll
That
paint
we're
the real
painting,
ones so you're not
like
confused.
the same
Yeah.
day, okay.
What's the date again of this?
Monday,
Monday?
May 14th.
May 14th it starts.
So were you all set with that? Or were you?
No, the thing that's bothered me from the beginning of this whole thing is that there's no benchmark.
Right, well, that's my
to
point,
measure
is
against. So
collecting, right.
Ideally, if a trial or a test or some assessment was being done, you would have a set of data prior to this taking place. So can the cameras or whatever mechanisms we are to collect
Yeah, before the 14th.
The effect? Can it begin at least a
Tomorrow.
day or two earlier so that we're recording it with the natural state in place? So that we can measure it. Otherwise, if we're just turning the cameras on while the thing's been painted, I don't understand what we're gonna conclude.
Well, you can also turn the cameras on afterwards as well, but,
But that's a corrupted test, if you're really being scientific about it.
So how fast can we get the cameras up this
You're
week?
trying to measure behavior before you actually made a change. If you measure behavior after the change, that behavior is influenced by the change, technically.
Andy?
First of all, I want to say that Chuck has been great on this. He's a great addition. Andrew Harris, 26 Tappan Street. He has been superb. What a wonderful addition. And he is trying to get a camera ahead of time, because we do want to have a before and after. You know, in theory, you could do an after with the camera and have the same data, but it'd be nice to have it pure and have it before. Also, we were able to talk with Crockers, and Sam is, no, not Sam.
Skip.
Skip. Skip is on board. We had a lot, we probably talked for 45 minutes, but some of it was that he's same class as our youngest daughter, so we talked about living in Essex, which he does, and other things, but he was assured that they would be able to drive over and that there would be nothing getting hung up. And so he was much calmer. And I enjoyed the opportunity to talk with him extensively. I stopped also at Manchester Marine. They said we do all our moving on our own property, but we know roundabouts were in favor. So the time, a couple of hours spent between the two places, a good investment.
I had a question about the logistics of the pads that are laid out here. If we find somewhere during the trial that they should be adjusted, is there the ability to do that, room to do that? Or any plan on doing that? Or are you planning on leaving just in a fixed location that you start with and calling it a day?
We're comfortable that it works. What they did is go out and just stand somebody in the middle of the street and accommodate. You know, when an 18-wheeler came by, he just stepped out of the way. And it did work just that way. So
There was some adjustments made from the plans.
Originally.
When they went out to measure and do a chalking of things, they made some
Right.
adjustments at that time.
Okay, and so these will be at the adjusted
Correct.
locations?
That's right.
All right. Other questions from members of the board?
I would like to be able to use this at the meeting tomorrow because it's so nice and big, and I was wondering,
Yes,
okay,
absolutely.
it'll be in the planning board.
Well, it does show one way on Bennett, which is not correct. So we just want
Oh.
Yeah.
to make sure that people are aware of that way.
So if the cameras are on before or after, let's just assume they're on, what are you looking for
Well,
specifically? Like, not qualitatively, like specifically, are you measuring speed? Are you measuring rate at which people cross the street?
we're measuring how well it works as a traffic flow.
What does that mean? Like,
Well-
how do you know that happens?
When people go in and they're not confused, we'll be
How do you
doing,
measure that?
we'll do some observations.
What will you observe?
Well,
Are you
just
looking at
see.
the angle? I'm not
You
trying to
know-
be difficult, I'm
No.
literally trying to understand what you're looking for. so that I can say, hey, this was worth it.
Well, we'll be standing there. I'm accustomed to standing beside a road and watching people's eyes.
What are you, so you're gonna measure their pupils?
No, but,
Facial expressions.
but.
I'm not
you know,
trying to be difficult, I'm
I know.
literally trying to understand, are you measuring speed? Are you
Well,
measuring
everybody has kind of-
volume? Are you measuring angle? Are you measuring what are you measuring?
What measuring is, do people just come to a stop and get confused?
So are you measuring how many times people stop? Is that the,
Stop,
is that the number?
or, you know, the first few times, people who haven't used roundabouts might be surprised.
But that's measuring people's getting accustomed to roundabouts. We're trying to figure out whether a roundabout, so there's a period of people getting adjusted and getting used to it. And we move past that.
Well-
Then we're actually looking more legitimately at, did the roundabout do something?
Yeah, well, the other thing that we do is take a look at right now, what happens, how many people get piled up, and how many people figure out how do you make the semi-left turn without getting clipped?
Okay, so we gotta wrap this up, but I beg of you to have specific things. So based on what you just said, then I would be measuring how many cars are actually backing up. There's gotta be something that you're measuring, or else this is not gonna go well.
I think that we do have, I think there's actually, since we're doing videos, we have time to analyze them. We have time to come up with objective measurements based on them.
Moved at the right angle, it depends what, again, you can't just put video and say that you're gonna collect data on the back end. What are you looking for? They should know that.
I think, so I think what we really want to do is determine whether or not it's improving the quality of that intersection, and that means looking at the traffic flow in and out of the four major entry points of the intersection. I imagine that it will be relatively easy to cover that with a couple of cameras. I would, I don't want to get into the details of parsing out, some really specific numerical quantity here, but I think there are such simple things like, and I think it should be relatively simple, like how long do cars have to wait at the stop sign at Pine Street? Right now, sometimes it's very long. Does that improve? Does the average wait time at that intersection improve?
Eli, forgive me, that's doing a test and looking for a problem. Like, we don't have a documented problem that we're actually going into.
I think we do.
What was measured to find the problem?
Well, the fact that cars get stacked up, waiting for everybody to.
Okay, so we're not gonna resolve this tonight, but if you're saying that, then I'm assuming before this test that you have documentation of cars piling up.
Yes.
You do? Measurable data?
Yes.
Okay, I'd love to see it.
Standing
I've never
there,
seen it.
standing there and just watching the whole process.
I would love to have a data set that you can actually measure against. But
The other thing
we're not
that-
gonna solve that tonight, because
Yeah.
my point is actually not the data. My point is that this has evolved and gotten to a point where I think we're gonna be spending a lot of time on something that it's not clear what we're actually trying to improve in this town. And the fact that we've gotten here suggests a procedural problem. It's not a traffic problem, but that's a whole nother discussion.
The other problem that we have seen at that intersection is that when people are coming down Central Street and they're going to turn right, the people at Pine Street have no idea whether or not they're going to turn right up into Pine Street or turning right to go to Bennett Street. And there's always a question mark when you're coming through there. If somebody has their turn signal on, are they going to go through and T-bone you?
I'm not saying there aren't problems. I'm saying, have we measured the problems? And do we know that this is actually gonna resolve it? That's all I'm asking. I know there's problems. I've spent my whole life going through that intersection. It's not good, but we should know what not good is, and I don't think we do.
Okay. I don't think we'll settle it tonight.
No, I don't think we will, but I think the issue that I would like to continue at another time is how we got to where we are, putting roundabouts in when we haven't, when I don't think we necessarily know what the problem is. So that's an issue for the board.
You know, roundabouts,
It's similar to the issue with, earlier with the Board of Health, like how these issues rising to this level.
Okay. Thank you. I will use that tomorrow morning.
Okay. Any other things anybody else wants to bring up before we drop into executive? All right. Well, then, in that case, I'm going to make a motion that we move to executive session, not to return to open session under Massachusetts General Law, Section, Chapter 38, Section 21A. Reason number 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigation of position of the public body, and the chair so declares. This is a roll call.
Adele would like to say something.
Adele, sorry.
Could I make just a comment before you do?
Yes, you
take
may.
that vote. I would like to say 2 things about Tom, very briefly. One is I've always been impressed with the amount of homework he does for these meetings. He always has looked into or done whatever it is needed in terms of homework. He has done it. And he also knows so much about the town that he can speak about something having to be painted or cleaned like he's done 4 things tonight that it's just because he knows everything. Well, you're going to miss that a lot. Well, I also want to say he is one of the kindest men I've ever met. Thank you.
Thank you, Adele. Conscience of the town, voice of 113 Ocean Street. I will second your motion, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Mr. Steiner.
Yes.
Ms. Beckman. Mr. Bowling, yes. Ms. Driscoll.
Yes.
Mr. Kehoe.
Yes.